Good evening, folks. As you come in, we're just waiting on Damien, and then we'll get started. So make yourselves at home. Oh, you are at home.
Okay, can you guys see me?
Yep, we can. We can see your screen, Damien.
It's really weird tonight. I don't get it. Let's see where my video is on this one. I'm not on my Lenovo because I just came in.
Okay. I'm going to try this button I have that says ask to start video and see if that helps you.
There you go. That did help me. Popped
Okay.
up.
There we go. All right, Damien.
Is it 6:30 now?
It is 6:31.
All right, welcome to our school board meeting for Wednesday, September 9th. Let's get right to it. Welcome everybody, and let's start with our new board member. Come on up front. You're on deck. And
right.
How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. Happy to be here.
Awesome. It's up to you, right, Joe?
It is, Damien, just waiting for your cue. Okay, and we're gonna do a swearing in. I'd like you to raise your right hand. And rather than repeat after me, if you could read the oath in front of you.
I, Ann Johnson, do hereby solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Washington, and will faithfully discharge the duties of Director of South Whitby School District number 206, Island County, State of Washington, to the best of my ability.
Congratulations and welcome to the school board. You're now an official voting member of the board. All right, Damien.
All right, so as we move on forward, let's move me out of this chair and put somebody else here. Do we have any nominations for board president?
I do. I would like to nominate Brooke Williford.
We have a nomination for Brooke Williford. Do we have any other nominations for board chair?
Yeah, I was going to say I nominate Brooke Williford as well.
Do we have any other nominations for board chair? And just so the general public knows, I have to ask it 3 times by law. Okay, are there any other nominations, Brooke?
None from me.
None from you, okay. So, I can't remember, Joe, if we have to do this as a roll call vote or if we can just all say.
I don't remember, so it's safer to do roll call.
Okay, so let's do a roll call vote. We will start with you, Brooke.
I abstain.
Oh, you know what? I should have started with Ann because she's our newest member. I'm sorry. I just.
Damien, I think we have to ask if Brooke accepts the nomination.
Oh, good point. Brooke, do you accept the nomination?
I do accept the nomination. Thank you.
All right, and now we'll go to our newest chair, or I mean our newest member, which is Ann. Ann, do you have a selection for our?
How do you vote, aye or nay?
I vote aye for Brooke Williford.
There you go.
Brooke, do you
I abstain.
have a vote? Are you going to abstain? Charlie?
I vote aye for Brooke Williford.
Andrea Downs?
I vote aye.
And I vote aye for Brooke Williford. That was nice and easy. So, Brooke, help me out. What was you were legislative rep, and
Yes.
Do you want to stay as the legislative rep?
I think that I'm going to have my hands full as board president. If someone else is interested in that, that would be wonderful. If not, I can certainly keep that if no one else is interested in that role.
Well, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to pass the board chair to you right now, just with that thought, and you can take it away, Brooke.
Okay. And at this point, do
You need a you have a vice chair in Damien, right?
Yes, we still have a vice chair. So now I would be asking if there are any nominations for legislative rep.
I nominate Ann Johnson for legislative rep.
Now you have to ask her if she wants to.
Anne, would you like to accept this nomination?
I will accept the nomination.
Excellent. Are there any other nominations for legislative rep?
Charlie, did you have any interest in it too or not?
No, I'm good.
Are there any other nominations for legislative rep? With that, we'll go to a roll call vote for Ann Johnson for legislative rep. Let's start with the newest member, Ann Johnson. How do you vote for Ann Johnson for legislative rep?
I abstain.
Okay, and then it comes to, should it come to myself as the second newest, or should I?
Nope, goes to
last?
Charlie
I should be
now.
last.
You're in the front of
Charlie,
the pack.
Charlie, how would you vote?
I vote aye for Ann Johnson.
Okay. Andrea, do you vote yay or nay?
Aye for Ann Johnson.
Damien, do you vote yay or nay?
I vote yay for Ann Johnson.
I also vote yay for Ann Johnson for legislative rep. So
And now look at that. We have a new board all in place again. Thank you, Brooke.
thank you, Damien, and everyone else. Okay, let's get going. This will be a little bit rough since I'm rusty on Robert's rules, but let's move on. We have done the call for new board chair. It is not, we are now looking at the memorandum 2021, resolution 657, the district reopening suspension of policy updated. Dr. Moshe, if you would like to give a brief description of what this is.
Yes, the
So-
board approved a resolution a couple weeks back that was very similar to this, but WASDA updated that resolution. And so we're asking the board to use this updated version instead of the original version. It changes some dates. It doesn't change it substantially, but it certainly has different whereases, but the now therefores are similar.
Okay. Is there a motion in regards to memorandum 2021-1?
Joe, just
Okay.
to clarify, is this a first reading or are we voting on new business tonight with a workshop model?
Yeah, you're voting on actually just revising what you've already approved.
We're
It's a
not in the
revision
workshop yet.
of an already
This is a special
done,
business meeting.
yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'll
I'll
move to
move to
approve.
approve.
Okay.
I'll
Do
second
I have a
that.
second? Okay, thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? Motion carries. And that is the end of our special business meeting. So I would like to adjourn our special business meeting and open up our workshop and policy review. With that, I believe that we should probably turn it over to our policy rep, Andrea. Would you like to take us through what we have here? And for those of you listening at home, if you have any questions or concerns about what's going on, please put them in the Q&A section and we will get to them as quickly as we can.
All right, so Anne, did you get this early enough to review all of the documents and policies that we had in there?
You know, I didn't get this revised version. I did go through
Okay.
and read the originals.
Okay, so just for clarification, all we're doing is we're going through, we typically, if you are not a board member who just gets elected in, 2 minutes before we open these, kind of what we look for is people have read them and then we're looking at what areas we would like to adjust or shift, specific areas that we had questions about, and then moving forward from there. So in the case of this one, this is absences and, can you go up to the top one more time, Christy? Sorry. Excused and unexcused absences. And so this was just recommended policy from WASDA. And it appears that most of the changes were in response to the changes with COVID. Were kind of the significant changes.
Mm-hmm.
So did anybody have any questions or thoughts? And Anne, if you do sit down and read them and you do have questions, you can always email myself or Joe, and we won't vote on it until the next meeting.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, this
And
is just looking over it, getting input from board members and any input from the public that comes in, particularly in areas of expertise that applies to them. or their
Perfect.
students.
You may find something, punctuation or something that's spelt wrong, or you feel that the sentence doesn't flow right, that bring that up. And then I think the big thing that to help you learn here is at the top and the bottom of the policies, some have a priority level that we deal with. And then of course, they also say when was the last time that we reviewed the policy. So
On most of them, not
that
this
might
one.
help you get your feet going there, because a lot of
Thank
people
you.
don't learn that until later.
Oh, perfect. I see it.
Okay.
Yeah, this looks pretty straightforward to me. Good changes to update for, it was great to see the inclusion of relating to care for a family member. That was a great thing to make sure we got in there also.
All right, next one up, Christy. Thank you. Okay, for this one, this is infectious disease updates. Anytime we have these, it goes through our nursing departments. This is an encouraged update, but again, it is just reflecting updates that relate to COVID.
I'm looking away down here because I'm looking at it on my phone also, so I can scroll at my leisure. So I am paying attention.
Any thoughts or questions about this one?
No,
All right,
Nope.
pretty straightforward to me.
next up. Responses to illness or injury. Again, encouraged updates for COVID. And Joe, I'll just share that North Central ESD had some really amazing flowcharts for what to do. And if you'd like, I can send those over to you for
Sure.
consideration for procedures.
That would be great.
Okay.
Always
It
love
has-
to steal a little good stuff from other districts.
Yes.
Well, they have given me permission to steal it, so I'm sure they will give
Yeah.
you permission.
Yeah, we're all pretty good about that.
But it's got some, it breaks it down. It's easy to digest, easy to follow. So thoughts or questions about this one? Significantly condensed is what we're
Yeah.
looking at.
Cut out a lot of the verbiage. But it certainly seems like it still catches the important stuff.
I think the only part that I would like for us to consider shifting is
Yeah.
anywhere that it says responsibility of parent or guardian. We have other parts of the policy that don't necessarily support that. So either sticking with parent or guardian or caregiver, because sometimes our students do not necessarily go to parents or guardians. So Christy, you'd have to let us know if we could use a word as loose as caregiver, but that might help our McKinney-Vento students. But that would be the one suggestion I would have with this one.
Add caregiver as a third option, parent, guardian, or caregiver.
Yeah, and so then if we could also add that to the second paragraph.
Would be potentially authorized caregiver and not
Okay,
caregiver.
Mm.
Yeah.
whatever makes it legal.
Yep,
Because theoretically, then anyone could claim to be a caregiver.
right.
Okay. Again, this one is an encouraged one regarding immunizations. This is in response to COVID, but this is also in responses to changes in legislative requirements.
So it's expanding the requirements effectively.
Yep. And Damien, you got some shalls versus will to weigh in on.
Mhm.
I'm all good there, Andrea.
All right. And in the Q&A box, Gwendy has a comment that most legal medical forms have parent or guardian, so wanting us to keep it because it can make things trickier from a medical perspective. Gwendy, the idea of adding caregiver is to support our students who are experiencing homelessness because they don't have a parent or a guardian to sign. And so for medical forms on that behalf, with students qualifying under McKinney-Vento, we are able to sign medical forms as a parent or guardian on behalf of the school district.
And that seems like something we should absolutely check the legality on, but that authorized caregiver sounds like it would be covered.
It would be like, it would be legal, Brooke, because of the McKinney-Vento laws.
Excellent.
So if you have a parent or a guardian, then you are covered under that. The part that creates a barrier for our students experiencing homelessness is when they don't have a parent or a guardian, which is the majority of our students experiencing homelessness on the island, and they're unaccompanied youth. And that's where a caregiver becomes a
Right.
critical
No,
piece
absolutely.
in policy.
Yeah, and to Gwendy's point, we're not removing parent or guardian, we're just adding
No,
caregiver.
Yes.
we're adding a third person.
McKinney-Vento policies themselves will probably have the right wording for that because they've done a lot of work there already.
Yep.
So we can
Yep.
probably just borrow right from there to our documents.
Oh, borrowing sounds so much better than stealing.
Yes.
So, can you guys hear me? Let me look. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, Joe, under the part there where it says he, she is not eligible to receive sick leave benefits because of the exclusion itself.
Mhm.
To qualify for benefits, he, she must be ill or temporarily physically disabled. What constitutes,
Yeah, and then otherwise, unless otherwise noted in their collective bargaining agreement,
okay,
which has provisions for, which you haven't seen yet because they're being ratified by those groups, but there are provisions in their letters of agreement for COVID relief that you will see once they're ratified by those
Okay.
groups. The board will be able to view that and determine if they agree.
Excellent.
So Damien, this line specifically is usually implemented if a district experiences something like a measles outbreak and the staff member is not vaccinated for a number of reasons. In order to protect their health, the district has the authority to exclude them from the workplace for that. And that's more so what it's referring to. And
right,
that's
but
language
I was
that has
just
been there for
looking at that
years.
second part there, to qualify for benefits, he, she must be
Right, you can't just
Yeah.
take leave
Ill or
because you were
temporarily
exposed. You have to
physically
actually be sick, is what it's
Yeah.
saying.
right.
Yeah,
And then you clarified what determines that person being sick.
Right.
That's in a bargaining agreement being discussed now.
Yep.
So that was my question, and that was great.
all right.
And
I
to
think
Gwendy's
that's our
point in the
call.
Q&A.
Yeah, ill or disabled that prevents them from being able to do their job. Yes, that's accurate. Yep.
I think
So
that's it, Christy.
yeah, that's the 4 pieces of policy that we needed to review here. Do we have other topics that we wanted to discuss in this workshop?
Are we at board comments then?
Well, it's workshop
Yeah,
format,
it's a
so
workshop.
board comments are
okay.
implied.
Yeah, so I'm opening it up now to board comments.
So I guess just in light of recent discussions that I know are happening in our community, I wanted to just kind of reground some of our 21 attendees who will hopefully have conversations with other people in their community, but reground and recenter in on why our district is going down this route of equity work. Equity has been a conversation in South Whidbey school districts for as long as I've been on the board, and I know it's been happening longer. Part of the work that we have done prior to the current board and the board previous to Ann's election appointment was we really heard from a lot of our students that we had a culture issue going on in our school. And we heard very strongly from them and their families that what they were experiencing was not in alignment with our mission and vision of our district. Part of the work that we did in this is we pulled students together in a roundtable conversation that they designed and that they led. And we were thought partners in just hearing their stories. And we listened to what they were sharing about their experiences, not just in school, but in the community. And we had that conversation private so that they would feel safe to speak truth to power. And it has really impacted the board. I guess it's just Damien and Joe left from that conversation, but it really impacted our work. That launched into the strategic planning and the mission and vision work that we did last spring. And even before that, it impacted our curriculum policy adoptions, how we were shifting and moving within our professional development offerings. And we were still hearing that people in those communities, which represents about 18% of our student populations, that they didn't feel heard and they didn't feel seen and they didn't feel like they had a voice or a place within our district. And after the tragic events regarding George Floyd, we received a number of community communications in a variety of ways, whether they were phone calls, emails, letters, people attending board meetings, asking us to do more. And one of the pieces that we looked at and that we agreed to as a board was there was a request that we post a Black Lives Matters banner somewhere on our campus. And we as a board discussed that, and we recognized that falling in line with that and supporting the people who were asking for that was not a political statement, but rather it was a statement to the 18% population of our school and their families that we see them and we hear them and that we recognize that they do matter. And it doesn't mean that other students don't matter. It means that we know we have targeted work that we need to do to support our students with varying levels of diversity. And I think that when that gets lost, the conversation stops being about the students. And when we get lost in those discussions and in that community piece of whether it's political or whether it's this or that, we're falling into that trap of not supporting the students that we said that we would hear, and we're not supporting the students that we said that we would see. And I just really want to reground ourselves in that and come back to that.
Can I interject
as we
something there?
move forward. Yeah.
Well, I'd like to make sure that we do reference historically exactly what took place here, and that is that a couple of us Charlie and I had made remarks that we didn't want the distraction that we're having now. I fully supported the equity policy and the things that came out of, as you mentioned, only you and I and Joe were the ones there when we had our truth to power conversation with students. And the equity policy that came from through this summer, agree with that all wholeheartedly. But the distraction that we're having right now was not something that I wanted, and it's not something that was even a part of what a board member does. The decision to display artwork or anything at the school district is the decision of the superintendent. And if there's a problem with what's happening, then somebody can bring that to the board. And they haven't brought that to the board. So I can't say that the board is actually on record of saying how we all interpret the banner. So just to clarify, I think we did a great job in pursuing the equity and diversity policy and implementing that, but the decision for what goes up on the walls at the school starts in the teacher's classroom, the principal, and the superintendent. And that has not come to the board yet.
That's
Yeah,
correct.
And I think,
Can we
I
just,
think what I would just add,
just
Oh.
let me put it back in perspective. On June 24th, what I asked was, what I said was, I plan to put up the banner, and did we have any objection? And Damien was very clear that it's the superintendent's purview.
You didn't have an objection from me. I said it's the superintendent's.
Purview.
I did as well. Yep.
Yeah, right,
So-
exactly. I just want to clarify, there was no vote. It was the
No.
board had no objection and said it's the superintendent's purview. And just to be really clear, since it's the superintendent's purview, and we had these discussions, the Black Lives Matter banner was put up in July, and it's been up all this time. And it has been something that I have received, and I have forwarded to the board many, many emails saying, thank you for seeing me, in essence. And yes, there was an article in the newspaper that spoke differently. It presented a different point of view, and I responded and was also quoted in the paper accurately, by the way. And I still stand with our students. Of course, the board supervises the superintendent, and I recognize that. And I stand with our students because I believe that this has spoken to them. And so, of course, I follow the board's directive. But this is in the superintendent's purview. And that is
And-
why the banner is there.
and
And
I
the
think
board has
the
not
other, the
received a formal
last,
complaint the board has not had a formal complaint come before it.
and I think the last piece that I just want to add, just to summarize my thoughts, is change is uncomfortable, and this kind of change is not a comfortable or an easy change. And I think that especially when I know that when I am in a situation where I am feeling like my experiences or what I thought or believed to be true is being pushed back on or being questioned, that is a highly uncomfortable situation for me. And I would imagine it's uncomfortable for a lot of people. And I just want to remember and stay centered on why we went down this journey. And I want to stay on that path personally, because I don't like the message that it would send to students if I were to back up. And I think that we have prioritized this. Our equity policy talks about becoming an anti-racist district, about dismantling systemic barriers and systems of oppression. And I think that we are acting in alignment, and I think that Joe is acting in alignment with what we are asking her to do in that policy.
Yeah, and Joe, you and I had spoken, and I had two concerns regarding the sign, as Damien articulated. My concern is more around safety, and I'll take you back to the June timeframe, and I'll go back to the Senior Rock. Right, the Senior Rock had become political, and there was BLM spray painted on there. Then someone would come and spray paint All Lives Matter. Right, so the rock was removed because it became political.
It wasn't removed, Charlie.
But it was wrapped up, right? The district
Right.
tried to remove the rock, correct?
We had discussed it, but what we did was we covered it and then painted it for graduation. That's correct.
But it became basically off limits because it was deemed being too politicized, right? And it became kind of a dangerous situation, right? People showing up at night. And I can't remember if someone had to, to stand by the rock to make sure, nothing happened. But then we put up the BLM sign, and then we tell people, well, it's not political. So my 2 points were safety on the school grounds, right? I'm worried about someone defacing it or someone getting injured at the school. And then from a communication standpoint, I just had trouble squaring those two things. And those are my 2 concerns.
Joe, there was a comment in the questions about Black Lives Matter being a political statement. You have a legal response that you've gotten on that. I was hoping you could share it with the attendees that are here.
Okay, so these are in the Q&A. Let me. Black Lives Matter is a political movement. There should be no banner supporting that organization. Make your own phrase. That's one comment. The banner is important. As a person of color, I do not feel that Black Lives Matter is a group of people. It's a statement of truth. Please continue to stand behind us, and thank you for not folding. Of course, we support our students and families of color. We want them to be supported, not to look at a violent organization that only supports a political party. So yes, in fact, and I've sent this to many people, including the newspaper which quoted it, that it was deemed by the Federal Office of Counsel as not partisan nor political. And so, and I've been standing by that, because they certainly are the ones that would determine if something is partisan or political. And when we started this journey, it was in a very, it was a different time in July. I mean, it seems silly to say that, but it hadn't become an issue at all. And it, for some reason, has become an issue this week. And I'm not sure why, because we are not a member of any political organization or supporting any political organization. It is simply stating that our students of color matter, that we see them. This is about, obviously, it's not about all lives matter. It's about students of color, because their house is on fire. We've seen so many ways to articulate that, and people have done it in simplistic ways and in very poignant ways. And I will take a simplistic way, right? Birthdays matter, but it's not my birthday today, right? That's what this is about. I walk around with privilege because my skin is white. There are different sets of expectations. I've never had to speak to my kids about and have the talk about what to do if they're stopped by police. I haven't had to be that person of color. And if we don't stand for all of our kids, and for those kids who are children of color at this time, it's a very difficult time. For all of the reasons that people have talked about, it's a very difficult time. And so as a school district, where are we in this? I stand by what we've put together by our equity team. I stand by what we promised our kids in June. They came to us. We had a petition with 1,500 plus signatures on it, and a very poignant letter from a student about his experience. So that's what this is about. And yes, it can become political. And maybe now that we're bringing this conversation into the open, somebody's going to do something unfortunate. And that would be too bad. Because the fact of the matter is, we're sitting here having a conversation we would have never had. If that banner wasn't up, we would have approved our equity policy and we would be putting things into place and nobody would know. So maybe it's not a bad thing that we're having these conversations publicly. This is one of those times where I have to look at myself and say, am I contributing to helping our students become the people that they are, or am I suppressing them? And I want to be an advocate for them. So That's where I stand on it. And
And I think,
I think also, Joe, just, coming back to, there have been times where I know with Damien and I and you on the board where you have supported unpopular views. I remember when the March for Our Lives protest happened, and we had students on both sides of that coin, and you stood up for the students who were advocating for the Second Amendment rights, and you took a lot of heat for that. And I think that it's important to remember that we have to stay centered on the students, not on what is flaring at the moment. And you are absolutely correct. This banner was put up in July. We heard a couple, like a week or so of positive thank yous, and then we heard nothing until this week. I think that last spring we heard a huge community outpour saying we needed to address how students were being engaged in our schools, and we worked really hard to start on that work. And this is not like the conversation that we are having. Yes, it is wonderful that we're having it in public, but it is not the first time we have engaged in this conversation, nor will it be the last. And I think that we just continue to move in this path. And as long as we do what you have been doing, which is keeping students at the center of the conversation, then that's what we ground ourselves to.
I don't think we're being completely honest with ourselves, though. This is not the first time we've heard from them. It went up on July 28th, and we've received a couple of emails. Joe's passed them on to us a few weeks ago from people that had their concerns. It is growing. And my big concern from day one, and it still is that it's a distraction. I believe it's a distraction to stop children from being able to learn in a environment outside of, in a secure environment, outside of adult politics. And I do believe, based on just a quick Google search of is BLM political, the first hit comes up by Google saying that it is political. And we can have this argument all day long. Is it not? Is it not? And the fact is, it's still a distraction. And I think what Charlie was concerned about, as well as I was that the defamation to the school, the safety at the school. And like Joe said, I hope nothing happens. I sincerely hope that doesn't happen. But that's my objections, is bringing it to the forefront of the possibility.
I completely understand and agree that there is a worry that something might happen to it, and that would be very unfortunate. And I understand the concerns about liability there, but I would also like to draw attention to some of the question and answer comments that have come in from people of color in the community, saying how much they appreciate that this statement, not allegiance to a political movement, that this statement that Black Lives Matter is up on the schools. And I think that I would not see this as a distraction, but rather an uncomfortable point of conversation that needs to happen in order for us to move forward as an anti-racist district, which is something that we talked about in our equity policy and agreed upon in our equity policy. And
so Charlie, or I mean, Brooke, when you're looking at these questions that come in, and some maybe say students of color matter, I get that. That's great, because that doesn't make people feel that it's singled out. But more importantly, I think what it's saying is that you're not referencing what many people think is a political movement under BLM. And so I get that, but I mean, and we can sit here and have the conversation, like I said, but to bang our heads against the wall and not get anywhere may not be a good thing. But we can always end up 3-2 in an end result if that happens, or even a 4-1. I'm used to it. I just don't like the distraction, and I agree that students of color matter, and I think all people of all colors matter. And I understand the situation with, as Joe was pointing out, that some feel more targeted than others with the police departments and so forth. But still, we have to look at everybody, not just one group of them. So that's where I'm at.
So I've been asked to read the questions because the questions are not seen by the attendees. So if you'll bear with me, one says, "Thank you, Superintendent." One says, "This is exactly what you need to put out to the public. This is not partisan or political. And as a district, Black Lives Matter, all lives matter. When people can't agree or can't agree to disagree, then fall back on the legal base. These conversations are necessary. Maybe say students of color matter. I'm surprised you're comparing birthdays to a slogan that is created and used by a violent organization. We can be supportive without that phrase or organization. As a biracial family, we thank you deeply, Joe. I cannot fully express the effect having the sign up has meant to my middle school and high school boys of color. It's so hard to stand up and be questioned, but this is the time to show our students to be proud of who they are and that their lives matter. I 100% support the banner, as does my student. It drives conversation. That is a good thing and gives us an opportunity to engage in this conversation with others. My life is not political, and it will be a distraction until it's faced head on. It's disheartening to hear him say that. I, as a student of color, am very appreciative of the Black Lives Matter sign. It is not political. It is not a distraction. You, Damien, are a privileged white male. These are Black lives. It's not a distraction. I agree with Brooke. We live in a predominantly white community, and this is difficult and uncomfortable subject. All we can do is say legally this is seen as nonpartisan or political subject, and as a district, our stance is Black lives and all lives matter, period. That's what I have so far.
Thank you. I didn't know that the Q&A didn't show up to the attendees, so.
I didn't either. Christy let me know that.
Yep. I do share the concerns about safety, but I also agree very strongly with Andrea that this was the right move, that bringing these conversations up to the forefront is important, and that if we change our mind now and remove that sign, I think that that is a very strong negative sign from us, saying that when things get uncomfortable, Black lives and people of color lives do not matter to this district. And that is the antithesis of what our equity statement states. It states that we are an anti-racist district and that we will do everything in our power to do so. And I think that that's why it's so important to have these difficult conversations, whether or not they distract from other things.
So I'm taking issue with the distraction because I have two goals this year as the superintendent, as directed by the board. One is to reopen schools and to get us going on our reopening plan, and the other is equity.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand. I mean, I raised the question. I don't want it to be something that takes us somewhere else, but I've come to this place where these conversations are powerful, and they're powerful for our community to see us having civil discourse over concerns like this. There is no ill intent. It is only positive intent. And that's why we've put the banner up, and that's why we're recognizing our kids. We do have another Q&A. The sign isn't a distraction. It's an opportunity to help students in our community understand that people of color matter and need to be supported.
And I think it's also important for our white students to see this banner and to hear these discussions, to see that those around them feel this way also, and that it's okay to feel this way, and it's okay to talk about these issues as long as we talk about them in a reasoned, civil manner where possible.
I think the other part I want to add is, the conversation has come up about safety and those pieces. Joe and her leadership team were very mindful of where the banner was placed, and they made adjustments to where the community requested it be placed in the efforts of making sure that people, if they made a decision to deface it or to add to it or whatever children of a certain age may or may not do, that they could do so in a safe way.
And that's not what I was
and we
referring
would hope that they would not. We would hope that they would not. We would hope that they would respect that and they would respect their classmates. But there was consideration given to that because of the nature.
And yes, I was referring to that, but But also, I mean, I'll go back to the rock situation. You know, you may have two different groups with two different point of views showing up at the same time. So that when I say safety, that's what I'm also talking about. I get that it's placed on the tennis court and it could have been
Yep.
over the street, right? Totally get that. But there's another component to it that I'm concerned about.
And
So,
Joe did
and
a
I- again-
fantastic job navigating that with the March for Our Lives. And I think that watching how she handled that situation and watching how that was supported, where everybody got to support where they felt like they needed to be, gives me the confidence in Joe to know that we'll be able to navigate that.
Again, this is not about violence in any way or defacing
No.
or anything. It is a statement of support for our students, all
And
of
their
them, but particularly our BIPOC students, right? We have students who are, we have 18, I mean, I have heard people say things to me that if they heard a recording of what they have said, I would hope they'd be embarrassed. Because they say things like, you know, why are we doing this? Whitby's white. And yes, that was said to me, right? And people don't recognize that our students of color matter, and they represent 18% of our population. And people are surprised when I say that. It's just, it's one of those times when it's hard not to be passionate about the lives of our students. So back to the issue of safety and you know, the issue around the rock. Yeah, people were painting on it. People were making statements on it. It is often a place where students voice their opinions. And during the time leading up to graduation, yeah, it felt pretty heated, and we dealt with it at that time. And if that came again and I had to deal with that again, I would. And if the sign creates a situation that we have to deal with, then we will deal with it at that time. Right now, it is a sign that speaks to our kids. And I would hope that the community would respect that.
And
It's
I'd
your
also like to,
decision, Joe. That's
Yeah.
where we're still at. And we have not had a formal complaint brought to the board. And so I don't think really
Okay.
that there's much for the board to, I mean, the conversation's great and enlightens all of us, but bottom line still is it's your decision until somebody actually brings it to the board for a formal review of some sort.
Okay. Would you like me to read the comments, Brooke?
I wanted to ask if, we've been talking a lot. I wanted to ask if Anne had anything to put in, not to put you on the spot, just to,
Poor Anne.
No, that's okay. I'm learning by listening.
and I know we've been talking a lot, so I wanted to,
No, I appreciate that. Well, what's been resonating for me as this conversation has been going on is that I, of course, was on the not part of the intimate work that happened at a board level and a district level, of course, but I am a parent in the school district, and I am, you know, fairly aware of what happens in the schools. And what I have seen, the sign for me is really a manifestation of action around the policies that were created. Because it's one thing to create a policy. We can all congratulate ourselves, pat ourselves on the back, we've made a policy. The next step is implementation. And like Andrea said, some of that's going to be uncomfortable, because anytime we take an action or create a physicality, we actually are putting our money where our mouth is, and we are making a statement or creating a physical manifestation of what we believe. And that can be really uncomfortable. And it's important work, because physical action creates change. And, you know, if a few yards of, you know, fabric will be something that makes our kids feel safer and more secure and feel like they belong and feel like they're being heard, that's a small price to pay for a few folks feeling extra uncomfortable in their skin and having to have these conversations. And I also think the conversations we're having are very, very important. I learn something every time I chat with someone who says to me, you know, all lives matter, or who says to me, I don't understand why this is such a big deal. Or, you know, Whitby's mostly white. I've heard that as well. And so I appreciate this opportunity to have public discourse and to listen to public discourse in a very intimate way around how people really feel about the physical actions our district is taking to show what we know.
And Joe, you were going to read, we've got 5 more questions up there, comments.
I agree with all Brooke's statements.
I just
The
wanted to
black-
hear that one.
Yeah, I know. The BLM movement was born out of the lack of safety of people like George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Trevin Martin. The sign supports the safety of students like Jackson Murphy, my son, and other students of color. Leave the sign. People will think, do, and feel what they choose. I understand the concern of safety, but we can't always act out of fear or concern of other people's actions. If we did, then we might as well live under a rock. Movements cause emotions that result in actions, so you can't prevent that. The conversation needs to be had. We must support all students. Make an actual personal statement. I am having to have conversations with my children about why our public school system supports a group that is responsible for crimes including bullying, harassment, arson, and murder. How do I explain the difference between what is truly equitable while this support is being put forth by the school district? People are likely just seeing the sign because they're going to school now. So now we're talking about it. How is safety an issue? None of the people that changed the rock got hurt.
And let me just be clear, Joe, I was never opposed to the sign, but as a board member, there are certain things that you need to look at holistically when you ask for our input regarding this sort of stuff. Do I think they should take the sign down? Absolutely not. And Brooke was right. I think that would send the wrong message if we, cave to political pressure. So I just want that to be clear, but there are some certain things that we need to take into account when you asked us about our opinion and feedback.
Thank you, Charlie. I think a last comment. So proud of our district. My kids are happy too.
Any other questions or comments from the board or the community? I'd like to state that I really love these workshops because we get to hear directly from the community. I'm looking forward to when we can do it in person and we can see people face to face and hear their voices while we're having these conversations, because I think that's really important also. But I love that we're able to have these conversations. So thank you to everyone who's attended the workshop. Are there any other comments? I think that's it for us.
Hey, Joe, on a different topic, I think, from a parent, we met the teachers this week. From an elementary school standpoint, I think that went extremely well. I know my kids and all the feedback that we've had, was very positive. So I do appreciate all the hard work that you and the district and all the teachers and all the staff and everyone's put into it. So I'm very much appreciative of those efforts.
You're here.
Thank you. Yeah, we have a drive-through parade for high school kids, Ann, tomorrow. So, I'm sure you'll be participating.
We're on our way.
You will get a full update at the business meeting in September on school opening and enrollment. It's been, as you know, it's been our soft opening. We're very encouraged, like to see what happens. Kindergarten and special ed start on Monday. And we're gonna keep moving forward. Hopefully the disease will cooperate and we can get our kids back to school. So we're working on it.
I think that's it. I believe we are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right,
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.